Okay. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you guys so much for being on today. Um, you guys all know me. You're all clients here at the studio, but for anybody that watches this back later on, my name's Erin, and I am an owner and trainer over here at Live Fit Studios in Camas, Washington. And I'm excited to share a presentation with you guys today on sustainable nutrition. So let me set this up real quick on my end, and then I will share my screen with you. This is the one we want. Okay, give me a thumbs up. Can you guys see that? All good? Okay, great. I just always have to make sure the technology is working for me. So, today we're going to be talking through kind of some bigger picture things. What I mean by that is that, of course, as you guys are well aware, there's so many topics that we could discuss surrounding nutrition. I mean, we could spend an entire day here, but we're just going to be talking about some kind of big picture things. I think it's most important that we kind of stay on these major topics and really perfect these areas first before we start getting too much into the weeds. So, what I mean by that is, talking about things like energy expenditure, so calories in, calories out. Talking about things like macronutrients, protein intake, what to do if we are looking to build muscle and or lose body fat, what kinds of things we need to focus on surrounding that kind of stuff. And then in the weeds would be things more like meal timing, which vitamins and minerals we need for different things, right? Those things are all important, but I would make an argument that unless we have the major stuff under control first, we don't want to get too much in the weeds with the minors. We don't want to major in the minors before we get this other stuff under control. So, just quick background on me. I have had a pretty interesting journey with nutrition myself. I have definitely been a yo-yo dieter, on again, off again. I've dealt with eating disorders. After I kind of, recovered from some of that, I've dealt with, more broad term disordered eating, where, my relationship with food was pretty complicated. And so, I'm happy to say that we've come a long ways since then. And I've learned a lot about nutrition just from my own journey, but also just my own interest in it, as well as, learning so that I could help clients over the last decade that I've been training people. And I would say that, well, I'll just add, I am not a dietitian. I am not a nutritionist. So this presentation today is just kind of for educational purposes, to help teach you things that I have learned and things that I think have been really helpful for clients over the course of the last several years in particular. So we're going to dive in, but what I want you to walk away with today is a handful of things that I want you to prioritize when it comes to your nutrition. So if you told me you wanted to get healthier, stronger, maybe build some muscle, possibly lose a little body fat, these are the things that I would focus on. We don't have to make nutrition this super complicated thing, but it is obviously an important element of our health journey. And so it's worthwhile to take some time and talk about it. So, most importantly, what actually matters when it comes to nutrition? And the good news is that there are a handful of things that we can focus on that will totally move the needle for you. We don't have to do everything all at once. In fact, I would deter people from trying to do everything at once because then we don't know exactly what's working, right? We want to know what moves the needle. How do you make nutrition doable when you've got a job, a partner, kids? Um, Jessica knows kids in, sports, and we're all over the place, right? So how do you actually
Yeah.
eat in such a way that allows you to reach your goals while you're also busy, right? You've got 47 other things happening at any given moment. Um, as far as workouts go, we make a few decisions a week, right, to work out and get some movement in. When it comes to nutrition, we have so many more decisions to make because we're eating several times a day. So, so what are some things that we can do to just simplify this whole process? So here's the things that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about protein, of course. We all knew that was going to be on here. We're going to talk about a mystery superstar. Okay, I know that's vague, but we're gonna introduce that here in a little bit. We're also going to talk about balance and consistency and how to just make this whole nutrition thing a little bit easier and a little bit more seamless. So, we're going to start with nutrition. If you have not been living under a rock, you know that protein is important for you, right? It feels like it's everywhere. I actually just saw this video that made me laugh on Instagram the other day where a woman was walking around a grocery store and she was picking up um, items that were not actually food items, like a bag of sponges, and it was like protein sponges. And it kind of feels like that right now. Like when you walk around the store, everything is being marketed as this protein source. And, that's because, yes, there's a lot more discussion now surrounding protein and why it is important and why it is a really valuable part of our diet. So, not all protein is necessarily created equal. So we'll talk about, what sources of protein are going to benefit you the most. But protein is important. If you don't know this, protein, we want to incorporate this into our diets. We're going to talk about how much, but if you aren't sure why, I want to just touch on that briefly. So we need protein for several things. We need it for muscle repair and growth, as well as maintaining lean mass and repairing tissue. So long story short, when we are lifting weights, which everybody in this group does with us here at the studio, we are actually creating little micro tears in our muscles. And protein is the building block that is going to help repair your muscles, which will, it will, in many cases, as long as we are eating adequate protein and sending that stimulus on a regular basis, that will also help us grow our muscles. So that's kind of, basic broken down why people who lift weights in particular should definitely prioritize their protein intake. It's also important for your enzymes and hormone function. It's important for your immune function as well. And then it does help with satiety. Satiety is that feeling of fullness that we have. So if you've ever had this experience where you maybe went out somewhere and you had a salad, and like an hour later, you were ravenous again. Why was that? Probably because, you burned through the carbohydrates that were in that salad pretty quickly. Maybe you didn't have a solid protein source to keep you fuller longer and to kind of stretch that meal a little bit further. So, protein is super helpful when it comes to building muscle, losing body fat, specifically because of that satiety element. People who keep protein intake high tend to find that their meals can stretch them, longer in between than somebody who, maybe isn't eating much protein in their diet. Okay, we're going to move on. So after 40, okay, so ladies that are 40 plus, this becomes even more important. And so I want to give you kind of like a simple explanation. As we age, muscle becomes somewhat less responsive to the same dose of protein and exercise stimulus that maybe you were giving it in your 20s or in your early 30s, which is why I hear so often, a gal will come in and she'll say, I'm eating the same way that I always did before. I maybe even exercising the same way, but it's not working. It's not doing the same thing that it once did. And, our bodies, as our hormones change, do become less well, they become more, excuse me, they become more resistant to change. And so this is called anabolic resistance. What this means is that you absolutely can still build muscle after 40. So if you've ever heard that that can't happen, that's not true. We can still build muscle after 40. But what it does mean is that we have to be much more intentional about giving your body the stimulus that it needs, which strength training, and also the raw materials that it needs in the source of protein. There's a second piece that's especially relevant for women here, and that's the menopausal transition associated with changing in your body composition and declining muscle mass. And, although this is still kind of being studied, we do know that, as women strength train, as they eat enough protein, they can absolutely continue to build muscle. So, we're not just trying to become obsessed with protein here. It might sound that way, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to stop treating muscle as something that we'll just automatically keep. Because unfortunately, as women, our bone density, our muscle mass does decline as we get into our later decades if we are not actively doing something to counteract that. So let's talk about how much. This is kind of like a simple example, something that you could maybe write down or just keep in the back of your mind. I typically suggest that ladies start at zero point 0.8 grams per pound of body weight or per pound of goal body weight. So what that means is if you are 150 pounds, multiply that by zero point 0.8, and that's going to tell you roughly how many grams of protein we should at least be starting with, okay? If you do that math equation and you're like, wow, that sounds like a lot, it might be. This can be, a stretch for a lot of people. I have met with many women over the years who are only eating 30, 40, 50 grams of protein a day. And I would say for the vast majority of women, we should be at 100 or well over it. So, if this number sounds like a lot, don't be scared or deterred. Just know that we can work on it and we can add a little bit each week and into each of your meals to help get that number up a little bit higher. We could go all the way up to 1 gram per pound of body weight. That is a number that you'll see a lot as nutrition is discussed out there on the internet. But I would say, 0.8 is a great starting point for most people. And this is going to help you preserve muscle, particularly along resistance training. Okay, so if you don't do anything else, track your protein, check in with yourself, see how many grams of protein you are currently eating, and from there, work on that math equation and see if we can increase that number a little bit. Yeah, Amy, I saw that you had a question. Go
Yeah,
for
I had a question. I've been reading about, well, there's only so much in a given at once that your body can handle. So when you talk about 108 or 100 over 100 and you think, okay, 30, 30, 40, or how much can you get at once? Or are you thinking about distributing it out, or are you going to talk about that later? The
No, I think
timing
that's
of
it.
the,
Yeah, it's a great question. I would suggest you distribute it out throughout the day, particularly because of what we talked about a moment ago, where that's going to help keep you fuller longer. It's also going to, I'll be honest, it's pretty hard to get in more than like 40 or 50 grams of protein in one sitting, unless you are just somebody who can eat a lot in one sitting. So I would say, like, for most of my ladies, they're going to have the most success with distributing it throughout the day, getting, 25 to 40 somewhere in there grams, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, maybe a snack, maybe a protein shake somewhere in the mix as well. There, what the question you asked is debated. So unfortunately, I don't think there's like one right or wrong answer there. And I wish that I could give you a firm yay or nay. But what I would say is that most people will have more success with spreading it out throughout the day. If you do have to front load a little bit on a day or back load a little bit on a day, that's okay. But ideally, spreading it out a bit more would be preferred.
but if you had 40 one meal, which I find really challenging, if you had 40, your body is able to process that much at once. That's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't be concerned about 40. If we were talking, like 75 upwards around there. Yeah. Then I would say that feels like a lot, in one sitting. But 40, yes, your body should absolutely be able to utilize 40. Okay, the next thing that we are going to do is we're going to talk about that underrated superstar that I mentioned earlier on. Does anybody have a guess as to what that might be?
Sleep.
Sleep is a great one. Yes. That's not what's on here. However, sleep is it's so important and it could absolutely have a place in this presentation for sure. Any other
Fiber?
guesses? What'd you say, Rachel?
Fiber?
Fiber. Ding, ding, ding.
Yes.
Yep.
I didn't
Yeah,
even
we're
know
gonna
the
talk about
answer,
fiber.
guys.
Fiber, the underrated superstar. So most people think that we can get all of the fiber we need from our vegetables, which vegetables will give us a little bit of fiber. Unfortunately, it does not give us nearly as much as we want. I'm not saying don't eat your veggies. I love veggies and they're so important for all your vitamins and minerals. They will, add to your daily fiber intake, but there are some other ways that we can get some fiber in, and it's a super important element of your nutrition that unfortunately often gets ignored because we are shining so much light toward like things like our protein intake, right? So this is another element that we do want to pay attention to. So protein is going to help you build your body, build muscle, build strong bones. Fiber is going to help you support the system that your body lives in. So, what does it do? Fiber is going to support your digestive health. It's going to help with regularity, your gut microbiome, blood glucose regulation, cholesterol management, satiety, cardiovascular health, all kinds of things. So, as you can see, it affects very many parts of your body. And this is where we can kind of talk a little bit about longevity. So, there's been a lot of observational studies consistently showing that dietary fiber intake in communities that's higher do tend to have lower risks of cardiovascular disease, cancer mortality, um, things like that. Okay, so it is important for a lot of reasons. Let's talk about how we can get some in and how much we want. So, fiber target, generally speaking, 25 to 30 grams a day is ideal. And if you want to track something else, if you're somebody who likes data and is interested in this, I would suggest checking this out because I actually checked in on myself recently with my fiber intake. And I was surprised that I was only getting like 15, 20 grams in a day, just kind of with my normal food routine. And, so it was a good check-in. It was a good moment to go, okay, how can I get a little bit more into my diet on a regular basis? This is also a thing that you don't want to necessarily increase from like 10 grams a day to like 30 grams a day. You're going to have some digestive upset, most likely, if you do that. I'll say the same thing about protein. If you take a look at your protein and you're like, okay, I'm at 50 grams a day, I would not suggest necessarily jumping up to like 120 grams a day. Let's see if we can increase a little bit, set a goal for yourself over the course of a few weeks. So maybe with protein, it's an extra 15 to 20 grams a day. And maybe with fiber, it's an extra five. Okay. And then over time, we can continue to build on these numbers. So here's a few examples to just make this a little bit more tangible. I put some on the screen, but I've got a few more on a list over here as well. So beans and lentils, things like black beans, chickpeas. When we're talking about fruit, fruit does have a little fiber, but there's particular pieces of fruit that are more helpful. Things like berries, blackberries, raspberries, specifically pears, are a great source of fiber, and apples, especially if you eat the skin. All right. On the vegetable side, some vegetables have a little bit more than others. So things like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, artichokes, kale, so some of your like leafier, darker green veggies, some whole grains, things like oats, quinoa, brown rice, some different breads have a few more grams of fiber in them than others. And then seeds and nuts, things like chia seeds, flax seeds, almonds, those are also going to be a great source of fiber for you as well. So, if those aren't things that you have in your routine on a regular basis, maybe this gives you a little bit of inspiration on some things that you could potentially add to your routine or to start to work in a little bit. This is why you see a lot of people do things like chia seed pudding. Okay, has anybody seen that online? I feel like that's like trending again right now. Yeah, so chia seed pudding, they're incorporating some things like some nuts and seeds into that as well. Yes, great source of fiber. That can give you some protein as well. Some people will take chia seeds, mix in some protein powder, make it a high protein and a high fiber meal. That's great as well. The next thing that we're actually going to talk about is a meal formula. So I get asked very regularly uh, if I can share recipes, if I can share, things that we make at home, healthy recipes to make. And I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I don't do a whole lot with recipes. I do a much more loosely structured approach. This just works better for us and my family. We have kids. We have some kids who like some things and others that don't. And, mixing foods together isn't always a highlight for them either. So sometimes it's easier for us to just eat things kind of in like individual, like separate. And, to throw a meal together that way. So, what I will just say here is don't worry too much about reinventing all of your meals or reinventing dinner. Recipes are fun. If you like to cook and you have the time to cook, go for it. I love that. But if this is a hindrance, if this is a roadblock for you, and I know it can be for many people because this is a conversation I have regularly, don't worry too much about putting together a big recipe book. We can make it much more simple than that. So, what we want to do here is build what I call go-to meals that you can turn to when you are having a busy day, stressful week, you're tired, etc. These are meals that probably take the same amount of effort that it would take to call up takeout and go pick it up somewhere or to go run through a drive-through or something. Okay, so these are meals that we can put together faster and help support your goals overall. Why do we want to do that? One, it reduces decision fatigue. So like we said a few minutes ago, you have to make a lot of decisions surrounding your nutrition on a daily and weekly basis. We do not want to have to put a ton of thought and effort into every time you eat, right? We want this to be relatively simple. We want it to be easy to approach. I want, clients to have meals that they can kind of make on autopilot. They don't have to pull up a recipe. They don't have to think too much about it. They can throw it together. It's foods that they like, foods that their family will eat, etc. This is also honestly going to save time and money. Groceries are expensive now, yes, but eating out is still more expensive. And you'll find that you can control your portions better when you're cooking at home. You can, rest assured that you know exactly what ingredients are going into your meals. Now, I'm not anti eating out. My family, we eat out, once or twice a week typically, and that's fine. But what we're trying to avoid is feeling like you're so overwhelmed by the meals that you have to make that you just opt to grab things out instead. So, what I like to see clients do is cycle between the same kind of like 5 to 10 meals and rotate those on a daily and weekly basis. What I mean by that is take breakfast, write down 3 to 5 meals that you like, that you could eat every day or could eat at least a couple of times a week. Do the same thing with lunch, do the same thing with dinner. This is going to really simplify things for you. So, my family does this every week. We have some meals that we pretty much eat on repeat every week, and then we throw in a few new different things here and there. just to keep things interesting. But as far as like breakfasts go, lunches go, I eat the same 3 to 5 meals pretty much every day. Not every meal has to be super exciting. Sometimes a meal just needs to check the box, give us the nutrients that we need, and that's okay. So let's look at an example or a few examples here. Oops, sorry. Okay, so when I am having a client work on some go-to meals, what I am looking for are things like a protein source, first off, carb source, maybe a plant source, and then some form of a fat source as well. So, going across the top here, salmon bowl. All right, so we've got salmon as our protein. We've got some edamame, which could also be classified as a carb. It's got a little bit of both. Um, Under carbohydrates, we've got some jasmine rice and kale for some veggies. We've got some avocado for a good fat source. And this is what I mean when I say you don't necessarily need a recipe, right? Could you look up a recipe to bake your salmon a certain way? Totally. But once you're kind of used to making some of the same foods on repeat, you'll probably find a system and a routine and a way to season things that you like that you can kind of turn to on a regular basis without actually needing a recipe to look at each time.
Erin, are you sharing your screen right now, or I didn't know if you were and I couldn't see it?
I am. Can everybody else see it?
Yeah.
Oh, ooh, I wonder what I'm doing wrong.
I
Dang.
couldn't see it either, but that's okay. I don't know.
Are you guys on your phones?
No, I'm on
Yes.
my desktop.
Huh.
Speaker? No. Gallery view. Oh, phooey. I don't know. I don't know why I can't see it. Um,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to troubleshoot that on my end. What I can do though, if this is helpful, is attach as long as it will let me do it, attach this presentation and send this to you guys so that you can have the visual as well, or at least at a minimum, take a screenshot of
oh,
this page
I
and send
just
it.
I just found the setting. Whoever's having trouble, it was up on the where the meeting was. No, I see. And I selected Live Fit Studio screen. So there was a toggle.
Oh, I
With the
see. Yeah.
toggle, you could do medium or your screen. Thank you. This is super helpful.
Okay, gotcha. Good. No, thank you. Thank you for saying something. Um, yeah, so just I won't go through each one of these with you because I know you guys can take a look at this later, but I hope that this gives you a little bit of inspiration. Again, yes, if you want to kind of get into some recipes and how to cook your proteins and all of that, that is great. And if you have the time to do that and you want to, excellent. But just know that we can simplify it much more than that, right? We can take some chicken, we can buy a rotisserie chicken and take the chicken off of it and put that into a fajita bowl, right? So it doesn't have to be complicated. We can simplify it all the way down to making it that easy to put together meals that only take you like 10 to 15 minutes. Another pro tip, make more than you need for dinner and have it for lunch the next day. It eliminates one whole meal that you just don't have to worry about again for the week. Okay. Some breakfasts that I rotate between, just for a few examples. Um, I often will do a couple of hard-boiled eggs. Some of you might have negative feelings about this, but I'm just going to share it. A couple of hard-boiled eggs. I do some cottage cheese and mix in some avocado, and then mash it all together. Throw in a few spices. I love the Trader Joe's. It's like everything but the bagel, I think, everything but the bagel seasoning. And I throw that on a piece of like sourdough toast. It's great. It's got 30 plus grams of protein per serving. I often will do yogurt. For me, because I'm on the go a lot, it's easy for me to grab the little like single serving yogurts. I love the Siggy's brand. I grab that. I throw some berries in there along with a sprinkle of granola. Um, so, again, these are just some ideas to kind of, show you it can be relatively simple. Doesn't have to be, a whole meal each time. When I first started making some changes to my nutrition, I spent the entire day every Sunday for like many months prepping and planning for the whole week. I'd go to the grocery store, I'd cook everything, there'd be lots of recipes involved. And I had food to eat all week, and it made it pretty easy, but it made Sunday pretty miserable. So, now I've simplified it down much further. I usually hit the grocery store twice in a week, just to kind of keep things fresh. I write out literally on a piece of paper or on my notes app exactly what I want to, eat over the next few days for breakfast and lunches, since I know I'm on my own for those, and then what we're going to make as a family for dinner. And I use this method. Okay, now it's a little bit second nature, right? It's a little easier to kind of just think through this as I go. But I definitely plan ahead as I hit the grocery store to just make sure that I know that I've got my protein source for each meal, and I've got some carbs and some fats in there as well. I'm going to move on from here. One thing that I'll add is that just remember that every meal doesn't have to be perfectly balanced. Like these are all really nicely balanced meals, right? But if most of your meals contain a protein source, some sort of high fiber carb or plant source, and then some kind of healthy fats, you're going to be in a pretty dang good place. And even if you never track your calories, or you don't want to track your protein or whatever, this method, this kind of style of putting meals together would actually get you in a pretty dang good place. Okay. So, speaking of tracking, tracking is a tool, it's not a requirement. I do think that if somebody is really new to learning about their nutrition and kind of paying attention to it, tracking can be an excellent tool. I did a lot of tracking early on in my nutrition journey, and I felt like I learned a lot. Now I can look at a meal and I can get a pretty close estimate on probably how much protein is in it, roughly how many calories it might be. But I kind of like to geek out on that stuff. So it's a tool, not a requirement. It can be really helpful and educational. And for me, I typically check in with myself a couple of times a year, maybe just track for a week, see where I'm at calorically, see if I'm eating enough protein. And it's just it's a little check-in for me. If I have any specific goals, like if my goal is now, okay, I want to try to put on a little bit more muscle, yeah, I'm going to probably be tracking my protein on a regular basis because that's going to be an important element. If I want to lose some body fat, tracking my overall calories, knowing that I need to be at a certain point in order to be in a deficit is also going to be useful. So here's a little kind of like flow chart, if you will. I know a lot of people have different feelings about this stuff. So if you want to lose body fat, tracking can totally help create some awareness for you and give you some education surrounding what you're eating. If you don't want to track, you can use that meal formula that we just looked at. And you can also use, portion control method. Again, it's a little less technical, right? But it can absolutely work for people. If you like data, if you are interested in numbers, tracking specifically calories and protein can be really useful. I would not worry as much about your carbohydrate and fat intake. As long as we're focused on the calories and protein. Okay. And then again, if tracking calories makes you miserable, there is another method that I really like by Precision Nutrition, who I have my nutrition certification through. And it's called the hand portion control method. So literally it's things like, if you're a woman, we're gonna try to get enough protein that is the size of your fist or is the size of your palm or two palms if you're trying to build muscle, things like that. So it's actually useful because it takes into account your size as well, right? I'm a taller woman. I've got bigger hands. Maybe I need to eat a little bit more protein than somebody who's 5 feet tall. So that can actually be a useful tool if I don't have that on here, but if anybody is hearing this and is thinking, oh, that would be really helpful for me, let me know and I can send you over an infographic that kind of explains what each of those things are, how to track it based on your hand size. And again, the best nutrition strategy, of course, is the one that you can actually sustain. So the goal here is to, find something that works for you for the long haul, not necessarily something that just can manage for a couple of days or a couple of weeks even. I like to say, if you can only sustain something for, a month or two at a time, unfortunately, the results that came with that will probably only be sustainable for a month or two as well. So we're trying to find something that we can stick to for the long haul. I saw that I had, oh, thank you, Rachel. I just saw that I had something in the chat. She sent a screenshot. Okay, so let's talk about some math for a minute here. We did kind of go over the protein intake already, but I want to talk about for anybody whose goal is fat loss. This is kind of like a general, simple starting equation for people if they are interested in losing body fat. So I say goal body weight. Now, I want you guys to be reasonable about this, right? Like your goal body weight might not be what you were in high school. So take a reasonable goal body weight, something that you feel like you would feel, comfortable and confident at. And we're going to set this up for fat loss specifically. Okay, we're going to talk about maintenance here in a second, but this is for fat loss specifically. We're going to take goal body weight times 10 to 12. Now, the reason there is a range is because some people are, their nutritional needs change. So I would say the older you are, typically 10 or 11 is going to be more reasonable. Our caloric needs tend to go down as we age into our later decades. If you are in your 20s or 30s, you might be on the higher end of that. And also your activity level plays a huge role in this as well. So if you work out here a few times a week, you walk a ton, maybe you have a little bit of cardio that you mix in there as well, I would say, probably the upper end of that 11 or 12 would be a good starting point. So that's going to tell you roughly how many calories we should be eating in a day if you are interested in losing body fat. And then we have the protein target there as well, goal body weight times zero point 0.8 all the way up to 1 gram per pound of body weight. And that can give you your daily protein target. So again, just going with the 150-pound kind of goal weight, you've got the two equations down there at the bottom showing, 150 pounds times 10 to 12 is going to put somebody somewhere between 1,500 to 1,800, and you can adjust the upper or lower end of that based on your age and activity level. And protein intake, zero point 0.8 times 1 gram per pound of body weight. Does anybody have any questions about that specifically?
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
What would be, it feels a little bit dramatic when I put numbers in there, but so would that be like a very rapid fat loss? If someone like was trying to lose 20 pounds and they like went down to that amount of calories when they're up 20 pounds, or maybe I'm misunderstanding the formulas.
Terrell, I think because I know a little bit more about your numbers and journey, I would say that I would probably adjust your numbers upwards.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If the goal is to lose a little body fat. Yeah, and I'm happy to help punch some numbers with you if you'd like to. But yeah, I would say, for you specifically, we could adjust that number up a bit, and I could see why that might feel dramatic on the on the 10 to 12.
It's like a couple pounds, and that seems like a really low calorie number.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
totally. The other thing that I'll say too is that maintenance. So if somebody's kind of looking to stay at maintenance, like they feel pretty good where they're at, body, like how their body looks, feels, performs, etc. That's going to be somewhere in the like 13 to 15 range. Okay. But that same kind of calculator applies 10 times, no, sorry, current body weight times 13 to 15 would be more like maintenance. If I have anybody in here that is looking to put on some size, put on some muscle, be happy to talk through, what those numbers might look like as well. And so, I just will add that this is a general equation. This is not the perfect science for everybody. Everybody's nutritional needs are different. All of our body types are different. Some of us burn more calories at rest than others, age, sex, et cetera. All of this is going to kind of change what these numbers look like. But this can be kind of a baseline for you to start looking at. And I am happy to dive in a little bit more deeply with anybody that's on here that would like to talk about this to, give you a little bit more exact math. Yeah, Jessica.
Is there a formula to figure out how many calories you burn, like just doing nothing?
Like your
Yes.
resting metabolic rate.
Yeah.
Do you wear any sort of like fitness tracker?
No.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, they can be somewhat accurate sometimes. But
Uh-huh.
again, that one's not always exact. Um, do you mind if I ask what your goal is here?
Um, what do you mean? Like a weight number?
No, just like, are you looking to lose body fat? Are you looking to put on muscle?
Oh, looking to lose
Okay.
body fat. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, what I would do with you is we would kind of map out what your weekly routine, your movement routine looks like, and then figure out what a deficit would be for you. Everybody's RMR again is it can be pretty different just based on how much muscle mass you have, age, etc. So it's hard to say, exactly what
What
that
it
might
is.
be. But
There's not
typically,
an easy formula.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't, there are formulas that you can find online. I think that there's so many other factors that can play in that it's hard to have a general one for that. But yeah, if that's something that if you're looking to lose a little body fat, what we would do is kind of like map this out for you to see what would put you in a deficit and then try that for a couple of weeks and see how the needle moves there.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Of course. I'm going to touch on these last couple things real quick. These are just some trending topics that I'm sure we have all seen and read and heard a lot about. So I just want to touch on them briefly, and then I'm going to save us about 10 minutes to do some Q&A. Just real quick for Q&A, I'll open up the floor for you guys to ask questions about anything that we've talked about today. And then if you have anything specifically that you would like to kind of troubleshoot or work through, in your own nutrition journey, I'm happy to dive in with you to that. So let's talk about creatine. This is a hot topic right now. I'm sure you guys have seen a lot about creatine online. So what is creatine? Creatine is going to help replenish your ATP, which is an acronym for a very long word, which is one of the body's primary systems for producing energy, especially during activity and short, high intensity efforts. It's also the reason that we rest when we strength train. So we are working to build back in our rest breaks some ATP so that we have the energy that we need to go into our next set. That's why you hear myself and the coaches always harping on taking our rest breaks. So what creatine is doing is it's helping with strength, it's helping with training performance, with muscle maintenance, etc. So the more energy we have for our muscles, the better typically that we can perform during our training sessions. And also it can help our ability to kind of build and maintain muscle. So I think for women in particular, specifically over 40, it's particularly interesting because we're trying to preserve and build muscle as we age, right? So there's absolutely benefits to what's going on muscularly, performance-wise, etc. There is also a lot of promising research surrounding brain health and creatine. So what that means is that, we are seeing some ways in which creatine can actually improve cognition, particularly memory, which is something that, a lot of women experience having challenges surrounding when they're in their perimenopausal, menopausal years. So, this is supplement that's still being researched. However, I would say that, for most women, it is a supplement that I think they could benefit from. I absolutely take it. I really love it. I take 5 grams a day. If it's something that you're interested in including into your routine, I would suggest starting with less, starting with maybe 3 grams a day, and just adjusting and seeing how you feel when you're taking it. 5 grams a day. I actually just talked to one of our clients here who is a neuro doctor, and she confirmed that 5 grams a day is kind of a good sweet spot for most people. So I have a brand that I like that I take. However, the most important thing that you're going to want to look for is just that it is creatine monohydrate. There are some different brands out there, so that's just what you want the primary ingredient to be on whatever creatine you're looking for. All right, one common concern from many of my ladies is that you're going to put on some water weight. Uh, from my personal experience, that did not happen at all. But again, everybody's bodies are different. Um, if you start taking creatine and you notice the scale tick up a tiny bit, I would not be concerned. What creatine is doing is it's sending more water to your cells. So you might literally look, like after you do a training session, like, okay, I can see my muscle definition a little bit more, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean it's like adding weight, body fat, etc. So, if you see the scale tick up a pound or two, don't be too concerned about that if this is a supplement that you are interested in starting to incorporate. GLP-1s. All right, I believe the GLP-1s can be a great tool for weight loss with the goal of losing body fat. The concern is always that we are not getting enough nutrition in, enough calories, enough protein to help build and maintain our muscle mass. So that is always my concern, and something I talk about with clients regularly is making sure that we are keeping protein intake high, resistance training as part of your regular routine, making sure that we're getting in enough calories because that appetite suppressant can be a pretty interesting feeling. And so, surrounding GLP-1s, if anybody is taking one or wants to discuss this kind of piece of it a little bit more, I would be happy to help. I do have some suggestions and tools that I have provided clients to help make sure that we're getting in adequate nutrition so that they can not only lose body fat, but they can maintain and build muscle as well. And then lastly, this is a question I get a lot. Fasting. Should we be skipping breakfast? Should we be fasting through the morning? The better question, I think, is does your eating pattern actually help you meet your needs, help you meet your dietary needs? So, for your protein intake, if you fast through breakfast, can you actually hit your protein intake for the day? Can you distribute it throughout the rest of your day? Hunger levels, if you skip breakfast, do you find yourself overeating later? Are you overeating at lunch, or are you overeating leading up to dinner because now you're ravenous because we're, pretty low on calories for the day? Lifestyle, does this pattern actually work for you? Do you have enough fuel for your workouts? So, generally speaking, for anybody that trains in the morning, I do recommend that you eat a little something. And I do recommend that, women, even if you're not training in the morning, eat a little breakfast. I think most people benefit from that more than fasting. I think for most women, we see, a 12 to 14-hour fast at most to be plenty for you to get all the hormonal benefits of fasting. And for most of us, that means that if we just stop eating, a couple hours before bed and then we wait to eat breakfast till the morning, we have probably had, about a 12-hour fast. So for most people, that's plenty. And when it comes to your training sessions, you will definitely feel a difference if you are training fasted versus having a little bit of food fuel. So for breakfast, what I would suggest, of course, have your protein as your star of the show. and then make sure you've got a little bit of carbohydrate, especially if you're coming in for a training session. So something like that is a really good combination. That could be like a couple of eggs and a piece of toast, or it could be like a banana and a protein shake or something like that. Just some kind of combination to give you a little bit of food fuel to make you able to work even harder in your training sessions. Okay. And so here's your sustainable nutrition starter plan. This just summarizes everything that we've talked about so far. Again, I'm happy to send this presentation out to you guys so that you've got this in one place so you don't have to write everything down or remember it. But these are the things, these are the big six that I would say to focus on primarily: prioritizing your protein, fiber, building out your go-to meals. You can create some sort of little chart, just like I was showing you in the presentation a few slides ago. Tracking, measuring if you want to, and if not, just coming up with some kind of game plan to help make sure portions make sense. Lifting weights, of course, you guys all do that regularly, yay. So building muscle, man, it's an investment in your long-term health, absolutely. And then just ignoring the noise, the basics still work. Okay, these are the basics. These are your building blocks. There's a lot of other things that we could think about, talk about, focus on. But priorities here, a couple things we didn't talk about: sleep, water. Those are important. Do those things. Make sure we're staying hydrated. Make sure that we are prioritizing sleep. They will play a huge role in your ability to build and maintain muscle as well as your hunger levels too. So we could have a whole nother presentation on that, but I won't get into that one yet. So that's all I've got for now. I know we took a few questions kind of as we went throughout the presentation, but does anybody have any other questions surrounding anything that we've talked about so far today?
I think Denise has one in the chat.
Great. Any thoughts on fiber supplements, protein powder? Yeah, to be honest, I actually don't really have a I don't have a fiber supplement in mind. But let me do a little research on that. I think that would be great for me to look that up and see if I can find something that would, be kind of good ingredient wise and help incorporate a little bit more. As far as protein powders go, there's so many brands out there. I just would say look for something that has at least 20 plus grams of protein per serving. Many of them have, like a 40 ingredient list. I try to stay away from, things that just have an exponential number of ingredients in them. They're all going to have some, yes, but we're looking for things that are a little more pure. So whatever works for you. If you're plant-based, there's plant-based proteins that are more like pea protein. If you're okay with dairy, whey is great. And if you find a protein that you are curious about and aren't sure, if would be a good option for you, I'm happy to take a peek at that too. Any other questions?
Erin, does your food look different on days you work out versus days you don't work out?
For me, no, not really. I I feel like I typically eat roughly the same amount, although if I'm having, I call them to our kids, I call them a hungry day. If I'm having a hungrier day, I certainly don't feel like I need to deprive myself of giving myself a little extra fuel. Because I'm not tracking my calories on a regular basis, I know they do fluctuate a bit from day to day. Some days are just hungrier days and some days are not. And those might coincide with your training days as well. I think that one is just a little kind of dependent on the person, can kind of change a bit. For somebody who is tracking, I do have some clients who do some things like little lighter calorie throughout the week. And then as they get into the weekend, they've got, a few more calories built in Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because they know that's when they like to go out to eat, things like that. So, there certainly are ways that you can fluctuate a little bit, but I would say overall, as long as your kind of weekly target is, pretty close and on track, then it's fine to have those fluctuations throughout the week. And certainly adjusting on your training days is fine.
Thanks.
Any other questions that you guys have? We probably have time for another minute or two, or another one or two.
You said that you had a creatine brand that you use.
Yes. I like Fitness. It's called Fitness Labs,
Okay.
and it's Crea Pure. It's made in Germany. The reason that I buy this one is because it was recommended by this awesome uh, doctor who specializes in women's health. This was her favorite brand, and I've liked it. I haven't tried anything else. Thorn is another one that you can buy locally. I think they might even carry that one at like Costco. But I've heard good things about that brand as well. It's like THORNE.
Okay.
I buy mine online though.
Do you do powder or the gummies?
I do powder.
Okay.
hmm I would probably recommend a powder over the gummies just because I think you'll get the purest form of it that way. Your body will probably be able to use it a little bit better as well.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything else, guys?
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
of
you.
course. Thank you guys so much for attending. It was nice to chat with you, and it's always fun to just, have a little more conversational chat here about some of this stuff. So, I hope this was helpful. And if you have any follow-up questions, or if anybody wants to like meet to chat about any of this or dive into your specific stuff more, I love talking nutrition. So I'm always happy to hop on a call or meet with you after a session, whatever works best for you. So just don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, guys. Okay, take care.
Bye.
You.